Chapter 11 Withered Seed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although the first-grade magical weapon split silver blade brought by the moon eclipse fruit was only fragments and needed to be collected and combined together, Lu Xuan was still quite satisfied. You must know that in the world of cultivation, among the cultivation resources of the same level, elixirs and exercises are the most valuable, followed by formations, magic weapons, elixirs, talismans, etc. And finally various cultivation materials, such as spiritual materials. Grass, spiritual minerals, monster flesh and blood. The moon eclipse tree is just a low-grade spiritual plant. Even if it is just a fragment of a magic weapon, it can be regarded as an unexpected surprise. He looked at the 3 silver flakes flying around his body, looking forward to the moment when the synthesis of the silver blade was completed. On this day, there were sounds again in the courtyard where no monks had come to disturb them. Outside the yard, a gentle and slightly anxious voice came. "Brother Lu, are you at home?" Lu Xuan immediately recognized that the owner of the voice was Zhang Hong's wife. He saw her only a few times, only when he was a guest at Zhang Hong's house. His impression was that she was a beautiful and gentle woman named Xuan, with a second-level qi cultivation level. Lu Xuan opened the courtyard door and saw Xuan, who looked a little haggard. "Sister-in-law, is something wrong? Please go to the hospital and have a talk." "No, Brother Lu, I really have something to trouble you." Seeing Lu Xuan's appearance, Xuan's rapid breathing slowed down a lot. "I heard my boss Zhang say before that black budworm larvae appeared in your spiritual field, Brother Lu, and it took a lot of spiritual stones to find someone to solve it. Recently, many casual cultivators in the North District have suffered from insect infestations. I took day and night precautions, but still failed to prevent them. The black budworm larvae invaded the spiritual vegetation in my family's spiritual field. When I discovered it, it had already reached a serious stage. I would like to ask Brother Lu if there are any casual cultivators nearby who can get rid of the black budworm larvae, and how much will they be paid?" Lu Xuan pondered for a moment and told Xuan the information he had obtained. "I know 3 of them, Fairy Lingyun who is good at flying needle magic weapons, Sword Cultivator Li Su who turns sword energy into silk, and Qin Ming who is very knowledgeable in ice magic. Among the 3, Qin Ming is the cheapest and needs 7 pieces. Spirit Stone, there is some room for bargaining. 7 spiritual stones." When Xuan heard this, a trace of confusion flashed in her eyes. She pursed her lips and rubbed her hands unnaturally in front of her abdomen. In order to be more fully prepared, her husband Zhang Hong spent most of the family's savings. The children at home spent a lot of money. If he spent 7 spiritual stones to deal with the pests, food would be a problem for the next few days. "Thank you, Brother Lu." She finally decided to ask someone to get rid of the black budworm larvae. Her expression returned to normal. She thanked Lu Xuan, and turned around to leave. "Wait a minute." Lu Xuan called Xuan, waited for her to turn around, and said affirmatively. "Sister-in-law, I have made rapid progress in a technique not long ago. Now I am 70 to 80% sure that I can kill the black budworm larvae. Why don't you let me go and take a look first?" "Thank you so much, Brother Lu." Hearing Lu Xuan's words, a hint of surprise flashed across Xuan's face. She didn't expect to ask Lu Xuan to help in vain, but who would cost more to hire a monk at the 4th level of Qi training or a monk at the 2nd level of Qi training? It's clear at a glance, if Lu Xuan can solve it, he can save a little bit. Lu Xuan closed the courtyard door, lowered his head and followed Xuan. When he asked Zhang Hong's wife if she needed help, he had already thought about it. After the white light group appeared in the spiritual field, the first thing he had to avoid was to put himself in danger. This time, the Zhang family was not far next door, and what he had to deal with were black budworm larvae, which were not very lethal. Previously, the adult black budworm was wiped out in one blow by the Gengjin sword technique. Now, I have a deeper cultivation and a deeper understanding of the sword technique. I also have fragments of the silver-splitting blade and many talismans in my hands, so I must be able to deal with them. Black budworm larvae are still no problem, Lu Xuan thought very steadily. Besides that, there is another main reason. from the memory of the original person, I learned that he was able to successfully become a spiritual planter and received a lot of help from Zhang Hong. When he first rented the small spiritual field, Zhang Hong lent him some spiritual stones. After occupying this body, I also received some advice from him on how to cultivate spiritual plants. In addition, the kid Zhang Xiuyuan was quite cute, so I just took this opportunity to go and see him. The two families were not far apart, and soon, Lu Xuan followed Su Wan into her yard. Zhang Xiuyuan was guarding the spiritual field. When he saw Lu Xuan come in, a hint of joy appeared on his face, but he didn't know what he thought of. He pursed his lips and turned his head. Zhang Xiuyuan, Su Wan shouted sternly. "Hello, Uncle Lu." The child was a little afraid of his mother and shouted reluctantly. "Good." Lu Xuan didn't take it seriously and came to the edge of Zhangjialing Tian. The spiritual field in the yard is nearly twice the size of the spiritual field at home, and the types of spiritual plants planted are also more abundant. In addition to the firefly, there are 3 other common spiritual plants. He soon discovered the infected firefly. Turn over the back, and you can see strands of black thin lines tightly attached to the leaves, seeming to be integrated with it. Lu Xuan's eyes were sharp, staring closely at the thin black line. Immediately, he closed his eyes, and the essence of the Gingjin sword technique flashed through his body. The spiritual power in his body was continuously compressed and condensed in the acupoints. In an instant, a golden sword energy as thin as a hair came out and passed close to the blade, dividing a thin black line into 2. After cutting off a black budworm larvae, the golden silk sword's energy remained, drawing a wonderful arc and cutting a thin black line into 2 pieces. Just like that, the thin black lines were divided into sections, fell to the ground, bounced twice, and then lost movement. Wow! Uncle Lu is so awesome. Zhang Xiuyuan, who didn't know when he came over, squatted next to Lu Xuan and praised loudly. Lu Xuan stood up, looking calm in Zhang Xiuyuan's admiring eyes. "It's just a black budworm larvae, nothing worth mentioning. Brother Lu, thank you for your hard work. Please come in and have a cup of hot tea." Seeing that the black budworm that had been bothering her was easily solved by Lu Xuan, Su Wan showed a relaxed look on her face and invited Lu Xuan into the room. After sending Zhang Xiuyuan to review his knowledge of cultivation, Su Wan took out 5 spiritual stones from the inner room. "Brother Lu, thank you very much this time. Please accept these spiritual stones." "Sister-in-law, this is impossible. Brother Zhang has helped me so much before, how can I still accept your spiritual stones?" Lu Xuan quickly waved his hand and refused. Zhang Hong was kind to him, and he also knew that Su Wan was from a womanly family, and living with Zhang Xiuyuan was difficult, so he naturally refused to accept these 5 spiritual stones. "No. You have helped me so much, I must accept it. It will only cost more if I find someone else. Giving you only 5 spirit stones is already a huge advantage." Su Wan looks weak in appearance, but has a very strong personality, and must insist on Lu Xuan accepting the spirit stone. Lu Xuan really couldn't refuse, and an idea flashed in his mind. "Let's do this, sister-in-law, I still won't accept the spirit stones. You can keep them for yourself, but I won't do it in vain. Look at your house to see if there are any unknown spirit seeds found in the wild. If so, just give me one." He proposed a compromise. Zhang Hong often went to the wilderness, and he might have obtained some unknown spiritual seed. "Is it an unknown spiritual seed?" "There is one, but I don't know what kind it is, and its vitality is about to dry up." Su Wan thought for a moment and said. She entered the back room and quickly took out a dried seed. The seed looks like a small sword, with a gray-black surface. It can be seen that it has been placed for a long time. Brother Zhang accidentally got 2 seeds a long time ago. After asking some casual cultivators, they didn't know what kind they were. He tried growing one, but it didn't even sprout, so he gave up. "I wanted to sell the remaining spiritual seed, but couldn't get anything precious in exchange for it, so I kept it at home. After keeping it for a long time, a lot of the vitality in the seed has been lost. Then I'll be polite and accept this spiritual seed." Lu Xuan looked over and over at the sword-like withered seed and said with a smile, after getting the withered spiritual seed, he didn't stay much longer and left the Zhang family with Su Wan's gratitude and Zhang Shuyuan's reluctance. Chapter 12 Sword Grass. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After returning home, Lu Xuan took out the nearly dry spiritual seed from his arms and looked at it carefully. The withered spirit species is as slender as a sword and is gray-black in color. Perhaps because it has lost a lot of life, its shape is slightly shriveled. Although Su Wan had already told Lu Xuan that she and Zhang Hong had planted another identical spiritual seed but failed, Lu Xuan was very confident. After all, as long as he successfully planted this dry spiritual seed, he would be able to understand the subtle needs of the spiritual seed through its real-time status, check for any omissions and fill in the gaps, and he would most likely be able to successfully cultivate it. Just as he thought of it, Lu Xuan found a small open space in the spiritual field and used the earth drawing technique. A slight crack appeared in the spiritual soil, just enough to accommodate the dry spiritual seeds. After burying the dried spiritual seeds, Lu Xuan continued to activate the earth drawing technique, gathering the weak spiritual energy in the spiritual field and gathering it towards the spiritual seeds. After absorbing several experience packs, the earth inflection technique has undergone qualitative changes. It can not only change the terrain on a local scale, but also slightly induce the flow of spiritual power in the spiritual field. After the weak spiritual power in the spiritual soil was integrated into the spiritual seeds, Lu Xuan gathered on the dry spiritual seeds with some anxiety. A thought flashed through his mind. Sword grass is a second-grade spiritual seed. When the spiritual plant matures, it looks like a sword blade. It is sharp and tough. It is a natural material for refining flying swords. I feel like it's about to dry up. Let's enjoy a heavy rain of spiritual energy to nourish it. After digesting this idea, Lu Xuan was overjoyed, as he expected. After planting this dry spiritual seed, he not only learned the information about the corresponding spiritual plant, but also knew the detailed needs of the spiritual seed. He immediately circulated the spiritual energy in his body, and misty water vapor appeared in the sky above the dry spiritual seeds. Then, strands of spiritual rain fell down and merged into the soil. The sword grass spiritual seeds have been experiencing drought for a long time, and they greedily absorbed the spiritual rain. After a round of spiritual rain, Lu Xuan's spiritual sense examined the sword grass spiritual seed and found that it was still in a dry state. I want more, the more water, the better. It's just a second-grade spiritual seed, but my third-level chi training can't satisfy you, Lu Xuan sneered. He was already extremely proficient in the spirit rain technique and almost instantly sent out another round of spirit rain. I want more, Lu Xuan snorted coldly. Young man, you will die if I don't moisturize you. After 17 rounds of spiritual rain surgery, Lu Xuan gritted his teeth and circulated the spiritual energy in his body again. In the sky above the sword grass spiritual seeds, the spiritual energy surged for a while, and soon disappeared, without even a drop of spiritual rain falling. No more, really not a drop left. He stood up unsteadily, feeling dizzy and having stars in his eyes. This is the negative effect of overuse of Reiki. Although his cultivation has stabilized at the third level of Qi training, which is much deeper than before, no amount of spiritual energy can withstand such continuous use. His mind was focused on the sword grass spirit seed. I want more. Lu Xuan shuddered and quickly stayed away. However, the fine nourishment of so many times of spiritual rain was not without effect. He felt that the sword grass spiritual seeds in the soil were much fuller and looked full of vitality. 2 days later, Lu Xuan, in addition to taking basic care of the other spiritual plants, focused on this second-grade sword grass spiritual plant. I don't know how many rounds of spiritual rain techniques were used, but the instant status of the spiritual seed finally changed. Sword grass, a second-grade spiritual plant, requires a certain amount of spiritual energy during the cultivation process. In addition, it also needs sword energy to nourish it from time to time to stimulate growth. It requires sword energy to be cultivated. It is indeed a second-grade spiritual plant. The requirements are obviously not of the same level. This must be the main reason for the failure of Brother Zhang and the others. After all, spiritual species are generally relatively delicate. Who would not think of using sword energy to do it? Stimulate it? Lu Xuan suddenly realized, and he understood the reason why Zhang Hong and the others failed to plant. He was even more fortunate that he could grasp the real-time status of the spiritual plant at any time. As for sword energy, he has a ready-made Gingjin sword technique. The spiritual power in his body was circulating, and under the control of Lu Xuan's mind, a subtle golden sword energy dexterously drilled out from his fingers, passed through the soil of the spiritual field, and hit the sword grass spiritual seeds. In an instant, Lu Xuan seemed to hear a faint sword cry from the spiritual seeds in the soil. Immediately, the golden sword energy seeped into the spiritual seeds, leaving a shallow golden line on the surface of the gray and black spiritual seeds. He followed the same method and used 3 more golden sword energies to leave marks on the sword grass spiritual seeds. He only stopped after realizing that the sword energy was enough. After the golden lines on the spiritual seeds disappear, new sword energy can be used to nourish the sword grass spiritual seeds. Finally successfully planted and started to enter the growth stage. I don't know what light group rewards the second-grade spiritual plant can bring. Lu Xuan felt the subtle changes in the sword grass spiritual seeds through his spiritual consciousness and breathed a sigh of relief. He increasingly felt the importance of grasping the instant status of spiritual plants. Perhaps, we can go to the market or the casual cultivator stalls to find some unknown spiritual species. Although there are not many spiritual plants appearing in the wild, it is not impossible. Spiritual plants have a certain probability of being produced when they mature naturally. They can also be taken from other monks and monsters, not to mention those weird secret realms. It's not surprising that anything appears. Perhaps other monks also have some unknown spiritual seeds in their hands. For them, if the type of spiritual seeds is unknown, it is difficult to evaluate the value and difficult to successfully plant them. But I am different. I can know the conditions for planting spiritual seeds. As long as they are met, the possibility of success is extremely high. In addition, I can also receive rewards from the light group. The more Lu Xuan thought about it, the more he felt that this method was feasible, but when he thought about the few spiritual stones left in his hand, he quickly calmed down. Purchasing unknown spiritual seeds is ultimately a gamble. Although I have a higher chance of winning, I can't say that I'm sure of winning. What's more important is that I don't have enough spiritual stones to end the game. After all, if you buy a wild spiritual seed, first of all, you can't be sure whether it can be planted. Secondly, you don't know what grade it is. It's okay to buy a first and second grade one, but if you buy a substandard one, you might still lose money. Let's wait until Brother Zhang and his group of monks who reclaimed the secret realm come back. The grade of spiritual seeds produced in the secret realm is more guaranteed, and at the same time, there will be more types in circulation. In Lu Xuan's impression, when wandering around the market on weekdays, he rarely saw stalls selling wild spiritual seeds. Even if there were, they were basically varieties familiar to monks, and there was almost no trace of unknown spiritual seeds. He decided to let nature take its course and accumulate more knowledge about spiritual plants. He would pay more attention in the market. If he found any unknown spiritual seeds and had enough spiritual stones, he would try to find them. The spiritual plants in the yard are more important right now. 20 fireflies are growing very well. The leaves are stretched lazily under the nourishment of the spiritual rain, and the little fluorescent lights are shining like stars under the reflection of sunlight. The red cloud pine grew about 2 inches taller, and the fine red needles on the tree became more dense. Under the stimulation of the fireball technique, they looked like a hedgehog covered with red thorns. The eclipse fruit has entered a stage of rapid maturity. Chapter 13 Uncle Lu, do you want the spirit stone? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The newly ripened moon eclipse fruits are twice as many as the first batch, with a total of 8. The 8 eclipse fruits were all of good quality. Lu Xuan carefully put them into a specific container and picked up the 8 white light groups that appeared one by one with great expectation. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and obtain a first-grade magical weapon, the silver splitting blade, remnant. *5. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and obtain the first-grade talisman sword chi talisman. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and obtain the first-grade elixir Peiyuan Dan. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and obtain a first-grade talisman, the explosive flame talisman. Among the 8 light group rewards, 5 were fragments of a first-grade magic weapon, 2 first-grade talismans, and 1 light group produced a first-grade elixir. Peiyuan Dan is a first-grade elixir that monks can quickly replenish their spiritual power after taking it. Lu Xuan carefully put away the first-grade Peiyuan pill. He had heard of this kind of elixir, but it was the first time he had it. It was extremely useful for low-level and mid-level Qi practitioners and was worth a lot of spiritual stones. There are more and more fragments of the cracked silver blade. There are already 8. Lu Xuan looked helpless at the 8 thin silver-white fragments flying around him. Suddenly, his mind moved, and the 8 fragments instantly came together, and the edges stuck together tightly, forming a strange thing. It feels like a silver sword blade, but there are a lot of gaps. The more Lu Xuan looked at it, the more he felt that this thing had the prototype of a sword blade. If it is a sword blade, does it mean that it can be used as a single magic weapon when combined, and can confuse the opponent during a battle, and suddenly split into many thin pieces, taking it by surprise? The more he thought about it, the more likely it was that he felt it was possible, and he was looking forward to the moment when all the fragments were collected successfully. There are still 30 eclipse fruits left. Based on the probability of the fragments appearing and the size of the gap in the incomplete sword blade, it must not be a big problem, but when he thought about the experience of drawing cards in his previous life, he couldn't be optimistic anymore. "Uncle Lu, do you want the spirit stone?" But while Lu Xuan was worried, he heard Zhang Shouyuan's familiar naughty voice outside the yard. Lu Xuan quickly opened the courtyard door. "What, you little guy, do you still have spiritual stones for me?" "I don't have spiritual stones to give you, I just have an opportunity to help you earn spiritual stones." The tiger-headed Zhang Shouyuan chuckled, with a hint of cunning in his eyes that didn't match his age. "Oh, come and see." Lu Xuan looked at Zhang Shouyuan, who was holding the grass puppet tightly, with a hint of curiosity in his heart. "Didn't you help my house solve the pest problem a few days ago?" "Just today, I heard Kai Bin say that kind of strange insect appeared in his house, so I told him that you were very capable, and he ran away in a hurry. Go back and tell his parents that you want me to take you to his house to help. His father is worried to death about this problem. As long as you, Uncle Lu, do what you did last time, you can earn a lot of spiritual stones." Kai Bin, in my memory, he was a child who looked like a skinny monkey. He often played with Zhang Shouyuan. His house was 2 or 3 miles away from my yard. Lu Xuan once met his father Kai Hai, a casual cultivator at the 3rd level of Qi training. They just knew each other and had no contact with him. "Would you like to take a look?" He hesitated in his heart, weighing whether to earn this spiritual stone or not. Risk. Mainly to deal with the black budworm, which can be easily solved with the increasingly proficient Gingjin sword technique, and there is a very low possibility of conflicts. However, with my 3rd level of Qi training, plus the Gingjin sword Ju, various talismans, and fragments of the silver-splitting magic weapon can basically deal with various unexpected situations. Income. Qin Ming, who is on the 4th level of Qi training, cleans out the black budworm larvae once and collects 7 spiritual stones. Although I only show that I am at the 2nd level of Qi training, collecting 5 spiritual stones is not too much, right? The most important thing is that I am really too poor now. There is a huge demand for spiritual stones, the area of the spiritual field is too small, and there is almost no gap after planting these spiritual plants. Lu Xuan really wants to have a larger spiritual field. He also wants to buy a storage bag. As the number of treasures in his hands increases, it is impossible to carry them with him every time he goes out. Acquiring unknown spiritual species also requires a large amount of spiritual stones. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan no longer hesitated, and nodded lightly in Zhang Shouyuan's expectant eyes. "Lead the way." "Okay." Kai's courtyard. Kai Hai's wife, Mrs. Li, was scolding her son. "I'm telling you, what do you think? You actually asked a teenage casual cultivator to deal with the pests in your home. Do you think it's just a child playing house?" Kai Bin, who was only 6 or 7 years old, turned red when his mother scolded him, and he mustered up the courage to reply. But, Xiao Yuan said that his little uncle Lu is very powerful and has superb swordsmanship. He killed all the monster insects in one go. Do you believe anything he says? You don't have to think about it with your pig brain. No matter how powerful a casual cultivator on the second level of Qi training can be, how powerful can he be? Mrs. Li turned around and said to her husband Kai Hai, who was looking down at the ground next to her. Master, I think it's better to call my brother over. He has some connections. He knows a mid-level Qi practitioner who can deal with pests. He must be more reliable than the second-level Qi practitioner that the little brat said. Hey, that so-called brother-in-law who asks for 10 spiritual stones, that the skinny Kai Hai sneered. I've already killed all my brothers-in-law, how about you come out with these 10 spirit stones? Mrs. Li pursed her lips a few times. Aren't I worried about the spiritual plant at home? Why? Kai Hai let out a long sigh. At this point, we can only try that young casual cultivator. I just went out to inquire. There was an insect infestation in Zhang Hong's house before. I heard that it was solved by a young man. He must be the person Kai Bin mentioned. Kai Hai knelt down and looked at Lingji, who was tightly entangled with thin black threads, with a trace of worry in his eyes. Other monks who can solve pests all have high prices, which is undoubtedly not a big burden for him now. He could only place his hope on Lu Xuan, who was on the second level of Qi training. At this moment, a beeping sound came from the courtyard door. Although Lu Xuan heard some arguments outside, he came with the idea that if he didn't earn the spiritual stone, he would not make it in vain. So Zhang Xiuyuan knocked heavily on the door of the courtyard door opens. Kai Hai forced a smile on his thin face and came out. Fellow Taoist Lu, thank you for your hard work. I heard that Taoist has unique skills in dealing with pests. I will ask you to help me take a look at the spiritual plants at home later. I can't say I have any unique skills. I just have improved a lot in a certain technique recently, and I happen to be able to restrain the black budworm larvae. Lu Xuan explained and then said. I will do my best to help fellow Taoist Kai deal with the pests later. But I have said before that the price Lu will pay for it is 5 spiritual stones, no matter the price. A person at the 4th level of Qi training only needs 7 spiritual stones. Why do you, a second-level Qi training person, need 5 spiritual stones? Mrs. Li interjected from the side. We are also dealing with pests. Why don't you go and invite the middle-level Qi training monk? Lu Xuan responded coldly. Of course, Mrs. Li would not be like this. She paused and said. It's not impossible to have 5 spiritual stones, but what if the insect pests are not solved? Go back to the house. Kai Hai shouted at Mr. Li in a low voice. A shrew makes fellow Daoist Lu laugh. He turned around with a bitter smile. No matter whether fellow Daoist Lu can solve the insect pests, I will give you the 5 spirit stones. I just hope that fellow Daoist can do his best. After all, fellow Daoist is also a spiritual planter and knows that spiritual plants are everything to us. This is natural. Lu Xuan said solemnly. He didn't care at all about the words of the evil-faced Li Shi. As long as the spirit stone could be obtained smoothly, he came to the attacked spiritual plant, and while he was concentrating, a golden sword energy as thin as a hair emerged deftly, and rushed towards the black budworm larvae with an unparalleled sharp sword intent. After a few breaths, all the black budworm larvae were chopped off by the golden sword energy and fell to the ground in pieces. Fortunately, I lived up to my fate. He stood up and said to Kai Hai, who was looking nervous at the side. Behind him, Zhang Xiuyuan secretly raised his eyebrows at his little friend. See how awesome my little Uncle Lu is, right? Thank you, fellow Daoist Lu, thank you, fellow Daoist Lu. Kai Hai had a look of relief on his face. Not far away, the window in the room suddenly fell down, and a faint sob could be heard. Lu Xuan collected the reward paid by Kai Hai and walked out with Zhang Xiuyuan. He weighed the spiritual stone in his hand, feeling the heavy feeling it brought, and suddenly asked. Xiao Yuan. How about we cooperate? You go find monks nearby who are infested by insects, and I will come to deal with them. How about giving you 30 broken souls for every attack? Uncle Lu, you helped my family so much last time. I can just help you find it. No need to break the spirit. Zhang Xiuyuan said naively. That won't work. I can't let you do things in vain. That's the decision. Chapter 14 Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lu Xuan said categorically, not allowing Zhang Xiuyuan to refute. He didn't want to spend a lot of time looking for casual cultivators who were infested by insects, so he gave this task to Zhang Xiuyuan and gave him a small reward. Zhang Xiuyuan had no choice but to accept, when he thought that he could earn 30 broken souls by finding a family of monks who were invaded by demonic insects. He couldn't help but feel happy and think about it. But some places must be agreed upon. The monks we can find can only be limited to the North District, and I can only help 3 families of casual cultivators to deal with pests a day. Lu Xuan added, currently, his main focus is on the spiritual plants in his yard. If the spiritual plants cannot grow in their best condition because of covetousness for that little spiritual stone, it will be more than worth the loss. He still distinguishes priorities very clearly. There is another factor. What he is showing now is only the second level of Qi training. If he activates the Gengjin sword art frequently, his true cultivation will be easily exposed. In the next 10 days or so, Zhang Xiuyuan worked hard to search, and Lu Xuan went out almost every day to help deal with the pests. As the pest infestation became more and more serious and there was a possibility of repeated attacks, he had to use Gengjin sword art 3 times almost every time he went out. Every time he made a move, he was given 30 broken spirits to Zhang Xiuyuan, and he could get 4 spiritual stones and 70 broken spirits. In more than 10 days, plus what he had accumulated before, Lu Xuan now had a net worth of about 200 spiritual stones. During this period, the owner of the yard came to collect the rent and paid 30 spiritual stones. In addition, 11 more eclipse fruits were harvested, leaving 19 more. All are of good quality, including 5 fragments of cracked silver blades, 3 first-grade Yuan pills, and 3 first-grade talismans. With the addition of these 5 fragments, the incomplete cracked silver blade looks slightly more complete, with only a few relatively small gaps. Since the storage conditions of the moon eclipse fruit were simpler, Lu Xuan was not in a hurry to sell them, but collected them together and sold them to Baichao Hall Higuancher when they were all mature, except for the moon eclipse tree, which is about to mature. The other 3 spiritual plants in the spiritual field are all growing in very good condition. The growth cycle of the firefly grass has passed halfway, and it will be harvested again in more than a month. The red cloud pine has not changed much, but it has grown significantly taller. As for the sword grass, under the stimulation of the golden sword energy of the Gengjin sword Ju, every day, a thin black grass like a sharp sword slowly grows. Standing upright, the tip of the grass points directly to the sky, and there is a faint sword intention lingering on the grass blades. Come on, the spirit stone is divided. This is your reward for today. On the bluestone path, Lu Xuan took out the 90 broken spirits and handed them to Zhang Xiuyuan. Thank you, Uncle Lu. Zhang Xiuyuan smiled naively, took the broken spirit with familiar movements, and carefully stuffed it into his clothes. The 2 of them just went to 3 families of casual cultivators today, and Lu Xuan successfully solved them. Now is the time to divide the profits. Back, the first group of monks who opened up the secret realm are back. There was a sudden commotion not far ahead, and Lu Xuan vaguely heard a few words. It seemed that the first batch of casual cultivators organized by the Wang family to go to the wilderness last time came back today. He had not been to that wilderness where opportunities and risks coexisted, and he was somewhat curious about the new secret realm, so he took Zhang Xiuyuan there. I heard that the new secret realm has several layers of powerful formation protection. The Wang family's formation master successfully broke through 2 formations and found many rare spiritual plants, heavenly materials, and earthly treasures, and even high-grade magic weapons and techniques. Fuck, I'm so jealous. I regret not signing up and going with him. If I go, maybe I will get a great opportunity. From then on, I will become a great monk. It is possible to become a foundation building or even a great alchemy forming monk. That's right, I wish I could replace it. Everyone was talking about it, and they were all jealous of the huge harvest of the monks who came back from the secret realm. Lu Xuan's heart was clear, and it was inevitable that he would gain a lot from the secret realm. Otherwise, the Wang family, a big family in Danfang City, would not organize so many monks and spend manpower and material resources to cultivate it. However, most of the profits will also be taken by the Wang family, and the rest will be divided up by some powerful monks. As for the largest number of casual cultivators, it is considered good to get some scraps. I don't even know how many people will not only receive no benefits, but also lose their lives and die. Zhang Xiuyuan, who was on the side, heard the monks talking and was thinking about his father whom he had not seen for a long time. He felt nervous and urgent. He said hello to Lu Xuan and rushed home as fast as he could. Lu Xuan was in no hurry and walked on the path home. News of the return of the monks who had opened up a new secret realm spread rapidly. The entire north district of Fengshe seemed to be ignited in an instant, and there was a sense of restlessness in the air. While passing by a casual cultivator's courtyard, Lu Xuan heard several mournful wails. Through the open door of the courtyard, he saw tired-looking monks holding an urn. A woman in front of him was crying sadly, distraught. Lu Xuan, a casual cultivator, is quite familiar with this family. The male owner is a middle-aged monk named Xiong, who has a third level of qi cultivation, and signed up to participate in this secret realm reclamation. The ending is self-evident. He didn't know how many times he saw or heard this scene along the way. The road to spiritual practice is long and difficult. If an ordinary monk wants to go further, he can only try to seize every possible opportunity. Even if he is not careful and will die, he must try his best to fight for it. Practice is difficult, practice is difficult. Fortunately, I have that special spiritual field. I don't have to fight for an unknown opportunity. I can just farm in peace and quiet. Lu Xuan was even more grateful that he had that special white light group, and he was determined not to go out and take risks easily. In the next few days, he stayed at home quietly and cultivated spiritual plants. Zhang Xiuyuan didn't come to see him these days. Lu Xuan knew that he was worried about his father. He was listless when he saw him occasionally. Although Su Wan remained calm on the surface, her face was obviously thinner. The heart is revealed. Father. One afternoon, Lu Xuan, who was using the spirit rain technique to water the spiritual plants in the yard, heard a shout of surprise. He smiled and opened the door. Sure enough, Zhang Hong strode home in messy clothes, dusty, with a bulging bag in his arms and a wrinkled smile on his face. It was obvious that he had gained a lot. Seeing Lu Xuan, he nodded from a distance and smiled. Lu Xuan responded with a smile. Watching Zhang Hong hugging his wife and children and entering the home with a cheerful smile, he did not go over to join in the fun. Zhang Hong came back from the wilderness with the harvest in the secret realm. Now he is at the most sensitive moment. It is not an exaggeration to say that there is a turmoil and a snake's shadow. Although the two of them trust each other very much, if I rush there now, it may cause unnecessary suspicion and resistance. A little while later, Zhang Hong came to the door himself. Chapter 15 Dark Marrow Mushroom. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Brother Lu, long time no see. How are you doing? Zhang Hong smiled heartily and greeted Lu Xuan. Thank you for your concern, Brother Zhang. Everything went well. I would like to congratulate Brother Zhang for your safe return from the wilderness. Lu Xuan said with a smile. I'm lucky. I only suffered a minor injury and got some treasures by luck. For coming here this time, I have to say thank you to Brother Lu. I heard from my mother-in-law that there was a pest infestation in the house before, and it was all thanks to your help, little Brother Lu, to solve it. And that little brat, he has been showing off to me since he came back, saying that he can now earn spiritual stones, and he also wants to use the spiritual stones he earned to support his family. Zhang Hong thought of Zhang Xiuyuan's triumphant look and laughed. Brother Zhang, you don't have to be polite. You have helped me so much before, and what I have done is nothing. As for Xiao Yuan, he saved me a lot of time and unnecessary trouble. It's appropriate to give him a little reward. He's a little brat, what can he do? But little Brother Lu, you surprised me this time. I thought you would only be able to farm quietly, but I didn't expect you to have such a skill in sword arts. With just this, Brother Lu, you can defeat many monks at the 3rd level of Qi training. Zhang Hong praised. Lu Xuan had the cover of the breath condensation technique and was not worried that Zhang Hong would detect his true cultivation level. The spiritual fields in our courtyard were among the first to encounter insect infestations. It took me nearly 7 spiritual stones and a mid-level Qi training monk to get rid of them. In order to prevent this from happening again, I simply spent a lot of money and bought a first-grade sword art. Unexpectedly, I usually make slow progress in practicing spiritual power, but I have some talent in practicing sword art. The sword technique is progressing very quickly, and it has even reached the point where it can help people deal with pests. I just want to use it to earn some spiritual stones and earn back the cost of buying it as soon as possible. Lu Xuan made up a reason to explain the ins and outs of why he could use Gingjin sword art to solve the pest problem. Zhang Hong has no doubt that he is there. The two chatted for a while, and naturally talked about Zhang Hong's experience in reclaiming the secret realm. The Wang family's formation master has broken 2 formations. According to those mid-level Qi training monks who entered the depths of the secret realm, this new secret realm is no smaller than Danfang City, and there are countless spiritual plants and elixirs in it. Those of us casual cultivators on the 2nd and 3rd levels of Qi training are only active in the periphery. We have no ability or qualifications to enter deeper into the secret realm. I mainly follow a team of casual cultivators, collect spiritual plants, and clean up some low-level monsters. Although the great monks of the Wang family are blocking the front, it is said that the casualties this time are still not small, about 30%. Our team was pretty lucky. We only encountered 2 dangerous situations. Once when we were collecting spiritual plants, we encountered a mutated spiritual plant. It was extremely aggressive and good at camouflage. 2 people died accidentally. Another time, I encountered a special monster, a spider with a human face on its back. It was so fast that I couldn't see its figure clearly. A casual cultivator was cut into 2 pieces by its limbs. Fortunately, I had a Qi practitioner with a high. The monks arrived in time and destroyed it. Thinking of these 2 encounters, Zhang Hong couldn't help but turn pale and looked frightened, which showed that the shadow left behind was not small. Lu Xuan on the side listened with interest. Anyway, he didn't have to experience it himself, so it was great to be able to get over it. What, little brother Lu, are you interested in going for a walk? When you open up a new secret realm, the benefits are the greatest and the risks are the greatest for the first time, but they will be reduced later. Of course, it's just like this on the outside of the secret realm. I don't know what's going on inside. Seeing Lu Xuan's interest, Zhang Hong smiled and invited. No, my cultivation is low, I'm not good at fighting, and I don't have magic weapons or talismans with me. I'd better just be a spiritual planter. He said with a smile. The spiritual power accumulated by the white light group and the magic weapons, talismans, pills, etc. brought by it are still too few. If you round up, it can be said to be none. Zhang Hong just mentioned it casually and ignored it. By the way, Brother Zhang, did you harvest any unknown wild spiritual seeds when you went to the secret wilderness this time? If so, I can buy them with spiritual stones. Lu Xuan changed the topic and asked. Unknown wild spiritual species. Wild spiritual species are rare to begin with, and unknown species are even rarer. I haven't encountered it myself, but I heard that some casual cultivators found a wild spiritual species in a deserted place in the secret realm. I will help you ask about it when the time comes. It's just that the type of spiritual species is unknown, and the planting method is unknown. Brother Lu, if you want to plant it, it is very risky. You will probably waste your time and spiritual stones in vain. Zhang Hong couldn't help but offer words of advice when he heard Lu Xuan's inquiry. I just want to experiment, not to bet on the possibility of success. If you fail, you can also accumulate some experience in cultivating spiritual plants and broaden your horizons. Lu Xuan found an excuse to excuse himself. Okay. Let me help you find out. Zhang Hong nodded and said, He was very efficient and brought good news 2 days later. In Zhang's courtyard, he introduced Lu Xuan to a bald monk who was at the 3rd level of Qi training. This is fellow Daoist Long, very powerful. This is Brother Lu. He has some talent in planting spiritual plants. He wants to know about the unknown spiritual seed in the hands of fellow Taoist. Zhang Hong introduced Lu Xuan and the bald monk to each other and quickly got to the point. I found this spiritual seed in a deserted land outside the secret realm. At that time, I found more than 10 wild spiritual seeds. The deacon of the Wang family rewarded me with one. It's just that I haven't figured out what kind it is, but judging from the place where it was found at the time, it should be no less than the 1st grade. Brother Lu, if you want it, take the 5 spirit stones. The bald monk said directly. Lu Xuan took the spiritual seed in his hand and looked at it carefully. The spiritual seed is shaped like a small fungus, dark red in color, with blood vessels on its surface, and a viscous substance flowing slightly. The price of 5 spiritual stones is not expensive. It was the same price when I got the red cloud pine. However, looking at the strangeness of this spiritual species, its grade and rarity are definitely not weaker than the red cloud pine. If we know the specific species, the price will definitely be much higher than the red cloud pine. Lu Xuan thought in his heart and made a decision quickly. Fellow Daoist Long, I want this spiritual seed. Brother Lu is so happy. The two of them handed over spiritual stones in one hand and spiritual seeds in the other, each showing a smile. The bald monk was happy that an unknown wild spiritual species could bring him 5 spiritual stones, while Lu Xuan was happy because there was another rare spiritual plant in the spiritual field, and more importantly, the white light group brought about by the maturity of spiritual plants. When he returned home, he used his earth drawing technique to free up a small spiritual field. And planted the dark red fungus. With his mind focused, the detailed information about the spiritual plant flashed through his mind. Dark Marrow is a 2nd-grade spiritual plant. When mature, it can be used to refine certain body-refining elixirs. It can also be taken directly to enhance the physique of monks. A spiritual plant growing in the dark does not need light or spiritual rain. It just wants to stay in the dark, accompanied by decaying spiritual trees. Chapter 16 Danfang. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It seems that this dark marrow mushroom doesn't like light, and its growth environment also requires decaying spiritual trees. Lu Xuan judged based on the prompts that appeared in his mind. It's quite simple if it doesn't like light. Although it's difficult to move it indoors due to the spiritual soil and the spiritual field, you can build a simple shed for it to block the light. It's just that rotten spiritual wood is hard to find. Spiritual wood is quite common, but who has that kind of rotten spiritual wood in their home? Lu Xuan was thinking in his mind as he took out tools from home and built a simple wooden shed around dark marrow Ji. After all, it is a 2nd-grade spiritual plant. The sooner you plant it, the sooner you can harvest it. He no longer delayed and decided to go out and look for it first. He walked all the way to the center of the square, and after half a moment, he came to a huge courtyard. Looking beyond the stone wall, you can vaguely see the dense and tall spiritual trees planted inside. The owner of the courtyard was a monk surnamed Zhou, who was at the 3rd level of Qi training. Lu Xuan had only heard about it before and rarely had the chance to deal with him. It is said that this monk named Zhou has a close relationship with a high-level Qi practitioner in the center of the city, so he is able to occupy such a large courtyard and plant so many spiritual trees. Decayed spiritual wood either encountered insect pests during the planting process, was stored for too long, or did not have good storage conditions, causing the properties of the spiritual wood to change and thus become rotten. This monk surnamed Zhou planted a large number of spiritual trees, and it was possible that he had rotten wood at home. He stepped forward and was greeted by a young monk. Lu Xuan expressed his intention, and the young monk led him to the monk named Zhou. The young man walked up to his father, monk surnamed Zhou, and whispered a few words. In Zhou Yuan, what do you call your little brother? Lu Xuan. Friendly Lu Dao, I heard Quanzi say that friend Taoist wants to ask if there are any decayed spiritual trees in my house. I wonder what friend is used for. To be honest with you, senior brother Zhou, I have gained some experience in cultivating spiritual plants recently, and I wanted to find the rotten wood to test a conjecture. I heard that senior brother Zhou is very good at planting spiritual trees, so I wanted to come over and try to see if there was any rotten wood. Lu Xuan replied half-truthfully. I see. Zhou Yuan nodded, his expression unchanged, and he didn't know whether he believed it or not. Due to various factors, there are indeed several pieces of decaying spiritual wood in the house. Zhou Yuan told his son a few words and took out some spiritual trees from the warehouse behind the yard. The appearance of the spirit tree was in tatters, exuding a rotten and unpleasant smell. If Brother Lu wants it, just take it. It's just that planting spiritual trees requires more manpower and material resources than planting ordinary spiritual plants. Even if these spiritual trees have decayed, they still have some value. 2 spiritual stones, these 3 spiritual trees can be taken away by little brother Lu. Lu Xuan frowned. Since the spirit wood has decayed, it means that it has lost its original purpose. It is a bit unkind to need 2 spirit stones for 3 useless pieces of wood, right? That he knew that the other party did not know the true purpose of the decayed spiritual wood he wanted. With this information gap, Lu Xuan was confident. 1 spiritual stone, just think of me as helping you, fellow Daoist Zhou, to deal with the waste wood. Zhou Yuan was just trying Lu Xuan's bottom line, but seeing his attitude, he stopped insisting and nodded in agreement. These abandoned spiritual trees are usually buried in an uninhabited place outside Fengshe after reaching a certain amount. Being able to exchange them for a spiritual stone is already a good idea. The 2 reached an agreement, and after Lu Xuan delivered the spirit stones, he returned home with 3 discarded spirit trees. In the yard, under the cover of a simple wooden shed, the dark red fungi seemed to blend into the shadows. Lu Xuan hurriedly took out 3 pieces of rotten wood and carefully placed them around the dark marrow mushroom. When he returned from performing a round of spiritual rain, he found that the dark marrow seed had undergone significant changes. The rhizome of the fungus, perhaps attracted by the special smell of the decaying spiritual wood, quietly grew many small dark red hyphae. The dark red mycelium spread into the rotten wood. Lu Xuan seemed to feel that the color of the dark marrow mushroom was darker, and the flow of viscous liquid in the blood vessel-like channels inside accelerated by 2 points. After successfully planting the dark marrow mushroom, Lu Xuan finally felt relieved. In the next period of time, he basically stayed at home, spending most of his time carefully cultivating spiritual plants, and the rest of his time practicing his skills and spells, and becoming familiar with the use of the still incomplete silver splitting blade. I also went to the casual cultivator market twice to see if I could find 1 or 2 unknown spiritual seeds at the stalls while the casual cultivators who had reclaimed the secret realm came back. Unfortunately, I occasionally saw stalls selling spiritual seeds, all of which were common spiritual seeds that Lu Xuan was familiar with. The courtyard spiritual field is only so big, and it is already so crowded that there is no space for other spiritual plants. 20 fireflies have entered the rapid growth stage, and the moon eclipse fruits on the 2 eclipse trees are more than half mature. A first-grade red pine tree does not have high requirements for the aura environment. It only needs to be stimulated with fireballs from time to time. A second-grade sword grass requires Gingjin sword technique and spiritual rain technique. A second-grade dark marrow mushroom's nutrients mainly come from decayed spiritual wood, and does not require Lu Xuan to nourish it with spiritual rain technique. It is enough to use the spiritual rain technique and the earth drawing technique to keep the rotten wood in a decayed state. Looking at it this way, Lu Xuan found that the first-grade spiritual plants in the spiritual field were the least, just a red cloud pine. The 2 spiritual seeds he found brought him an unexpected surprise. They were both second-grade spiritual plants. During this period, he harvested 5 more moon eclipse fruits, 4 of good quality and 1 of good quality. 2 of the 5 white light groups brought were fragments of the silver splitting blade. In this way, the magical silver splitting blade was more complete, with only a few small gaps. There are 14 eclipse fruits left, so Lu Xuan estimates that the problem is not big. There are also 2 first-grade talismans, namely the Sword Energy Talisman and the Evil Dispelling Talisman. Among the talismans of this level, they are both quite good. As for the high-quality moon eclipse fruit, after Lu Xuan absorbed it, a stream of information appeared in his mind. The Peiyuan Dan prescription records the materials, techniques, etc. for refining the first-grade elixir Peiyuan Dan. It's actually an elixir. It's indeed a high-quality moon eclipse fruit. Lu Xuan was a little surprised. The pills that came out of the white light group several times before were the Peiyuan Dan Qingdan. This time, the pills were directly released. Well, it's better to teach a man to fish than to teach him to fish. It seems that he will have to spend some time to learn how to refine the elixir. Lu Xuan thought secretly. It's just that there is no foundation before. If you start refining the elixir from scratch, the probability of failure is higher. I don't know if this moon eclipse fruit will ever be used to produce a prescription for cultivating Yuan Dan. If there is another prescription, will it be like the previous earth induction technique and Gingjin sword technique, which will automatically increase the alchemy experience after repeated absorption? Lu Xuan thought optimistically as he looked at the dozen round and plump moon eclipse fruits hanging among the green leaves. Chapter 17 Cooperation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When each spiritual plant matures, the things that bloom out of the white light group are different. After the experience of harvesting two different spiritual plants, Lu Xuan gradually discovered some of the patterns. When the spirit fire grass matures, the light group contains several months of cultivation, low-grade spells, and first-grade talismans. As for the moon eclipse fruit, the main items produced are fragments of magical artifacts, elixirs, talismans, and relatively low probabilities of Danfang. Perhaps you can adjust the types of spiritual plants according to your own needs in the future. However, the most important problem that needs to be solved now is to find a larger spiritual field as soon as possible, with richer spiritual energy and a more complex environment that can support the growth of various types of spiritual plants. Secondly, I urgently need a storage bag. After all, my wealth is getting richer and richer, and I have more and more talismans and elixirs on my body. I can't carry it in my arms every time I travel. Thinking of this, Lu Xuan looked at the 28 eclipse fruits piled up in the house and decided to sell them in exchange for spiritual stones. He packed them in a cloth bag and rushed directly to the destination, Baichao Hall, without stopping on the way. In the room filled with the strong aroma of medicine, Guanshir's sharp eyes saw Lu Xuan and the bulging cloth bag he was carrying. Boy Lu, I haven't seen you for a while. What spiritual plants have matured? 2 eclipse trees have entered the mature stage and I picked some fruits to visit you. Lu Xuan said with a smile. It's a lie to visit my old man, but it's true to visit the spiritual stones in Baichao Hall, right? The thin old man said with a half-smile. Take out your treasure and show it to me. Lu Xuan placed the cloth bag on the wooden cabinet. 28 eclipse fruits, one of which is of high quality, and the rest are of good quality. Almost all good qualities. Are you enlightened? Manager, he said in surprise that although there were good and high-quality plants in the firefly grass that Lu Xuan brought over before, there were also many ordinary level ones, but this time, they were all good quality or above, which made him how not to be surprised. It is indeed all of good quality and above. He inspected each eclipse fruit one by one and judged its quality based on the fruit's size and roundness. We have been apart for 3 days, so we should look at each other with admiration. The thin old man looked at Lu Xuan and sighed with emotion. He still remembered that when this teenage boy first entered Baichao Hall, he took out a few ordinary fireflies and said that he wanted to sell them to Baichao Hall. Baikatang had its own stable purchase channel, and generally did not accept spiritual plants from small casual cultivators. But seeing the young man's resolute and stubborn face at that time, the old man felt compassion and agreed to the young man's request for sale. But now, the young man has become a spiritual planter who can grow high-quality elixirs at any time. The thin old man was filled with emotion for a moment, but the young man's next words brought him back to reality. What are you talking about? Are you thinking of taking advantage of me? You kid, Guanshir laughed and cursed. A good quality moon eclipse fruit will cost you 10 spirit stones for 1 spirit stone, and 20 more spirit fragments for the top quality one. Lu Xuan had already compared it with other drugstore stalls and knew that this was a fairly fair price, so he readily agreed. The price of the moon eclipse fruit is much lower than that of the firefly grass. but one moon eclipse tree can produce more than 20 fruits, so the value is still much higher than that of the firefly grass. Guanshi he handed a total of 32 low-grade spiritual stones to Lu Xuan and asked curiously. Boy Lu, to be honest, have your planting skills improved a lot? You cannot get so many good quality spiritual fruits by just being lucky. It's definitely improved. However, this is also the result of a lot of sacrifice. I just use the time other monks practice and explore secret realms to plant spiritual plants. In order to be able to grow higher quality spiritual plants, I have completely given up on the naive idea of becoming a powerful monk. Now, I just want to grow spiritual plants well and live an ordinary life as a spiritual planter. Lu Xuan's eyes were blank and he tried hard to maintain his persona as an ordinary psychic planter. It's good to have such an idea. At least it's relatively safe. You don't have to fight to the death with others for the slightest opportunity. Maybe you can live longer than them. Moreover, if you maintain this progress, you can also achieve a high status as a spiritual planter. The thin old man felt the same and comforted Lu Xuan. He paused and continued. I told you before, if you have always had this level of planting ability, I will give you a chance. You also know that there is an alchemist in Baicaotang. His alchemy skills are among the best in the entire Linyangfang city. He also has many alchemy boys under his command. Therefore, there is a huge demand for various elixir materials. There are also several large spiritual fields where spiritual planters are hired to grow related elixirs. Although my status is not high, I can still speak well in Baichao Hall. I can recommend you to cooperate with Baichao Hall. What kind of cooperation method? Lu Xuan asked curiously. There are generally two types. The first one is to directly hire spiritual planters to plant elixirs for Baicaotang. The ownership rights of the planted elixirs belong to Baicaotang, and the spiritual planters will be given a certain amount of remuneration. The better the quality of the elixirs grown, the more rewards will be given. This cooperative model can provide you with a more stable planting environment, allowing you to concentrate on cultivation without worrying about other things. The second one is much simpler. We will sell the spiritual seeds at a low price to the spiritual planters who want to cooperate. At the same time, it is agreed that when the spiritual plants mature, Baicaotang will have the first right to acquire them. The risks and benefits will be borne by the spiritual planters. Take it upon yourself. Of course, this priority will not be abused. If the price is too different from other acquirers, the spiritual planter can make his own decision. Lu Xuan nodded. Both methods of cooperation have their own pros and cons. The first type is more stable. The safety of both oneself and Ling Tianlingji is guaranteed, but it is relatively less free. The second type has higher risks and may produce greater benefits. If you are really an ordinary spiritual planter who is content with being ordinary, of course the first type is safer, but Lu Xuan has never liked being restrained, and because of the white light mass in Ling Tian, having free space is particularly important to him. He Guanshi, I'm used to being lazy and not used to being controlled by others, so if you really want to cooperate, then choose the second option. Lu Xuan just wished that someone would provide him with spiritual seeds. Okay, then I'll go and report it to the higher-ups. Once it's confirmed, I'll let you know when you come over. Okay, thank you so much, Guanshi he. Lu Xuan cupped his hands towards the thin old man and said gratefully, he could clearly feel the old man's kindness towards him and kept it deep in his heart. In this case, the top priority is to have a bigger and better spiritual field. The idea in his mind became more clear and urgent. Chapter 18 Threat, please follow up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Senior Brother Lu, what do you think of this spiritual field? In the spacious courtyard, Lu Xuan walked slowly and carefully observed the surrounding situation. A young monk with a level of qi training and a scar on his face followed him step by step. The young man bent slightly and forced out a very enthusiastic smile. The owner of this courtyard was once a mid-level qi training monk. He went out to explore one time and didn't come back for a long time. His descendants mortgaged it, so we Yaxing rented it out. The spiritual field in front of us is nearly an acre, and it is rich in spiritual energy. The courtyard is located next to the casual cultivator market. It is patrolled by city guards, so the safety can be greatly guaranteed. And the chicken coop in front was painted with the runes of clean dust, stability, and sound insulation by the previous owner. It is suitable for raising spiritual beasts and birds. It's really good, but I still need to think about it. Lu Xuan said calmly. In the past few days, he took some free time and visited several spiritual fields through Yaran. The area of these spiritual fields is several times or 10 times that of his current spiritual fields. The spiritual energy is much richer, and they have various conveniences. There is also a courtyard in it. Not only does the spiritual field cover an area of more than an acre, there is also a spiritual spring in it. This made Lu Xuan very excited, but after asking about the rent, he was quickly brought back to reality. Among the several spiritual fields I looked at, even the cheapest one had a rent of 40 spiritual stones a month. The one with a spiritual spring even cost 60 spiritual stones a month, and the rent paid was no less than half a year at a time. Lu Xuan has been poor and rich for a long time recently, and his net worth is nearly 300 spirit stones, which makes him feel a little inflated, but now I realize that this amount of spiritual stones is not enough when you really need them, and it will take some time to accumulate them. Lu Xuan thought of this, turned around and said to Scar-Tooth Man, "I'll go back and think about it first. If I have any intention, I'll come to you again." After that, he turned around and left. When Lu Xuan's figure was gone, Scar-Tooth Man couldn't help but spit. What the hell? A young casual cultivator on the second level of Qi training still wants to rent this kind of spiritual field. What a wishful thinking. Waste of my time. Lu Xuan frowned slightly. It had been some time since his cultivation reached the third level of Qi training. His 5 senses were much sharper than before. He vaguely heard the words of the scarred young monk, then he smiled and didn't care about Yaren's attitude of being respectful and arrogant. He just quietly put him on the blacklist and never went to see him again. Hey, I always felt so poor that I couldn't even bear to feed the straw puppet a broken spirit. Now that I have a net worth of nearly 300 spirit stones, I can feed one to any grass puppet. If I throw away, no, I can feed 2. But why do you feel that you are so poor? Such an idea came into his mind. You still have to work hard to earn spiritual stones. After Zhang Hong rested for a few days, he went to the wilderness secret realm again. Zhang Xiuyuan had already entered working mode these days. The two continued to cooperate. Zhang Xiuyuan found qualified casual cultivators who encountered pests, and Lu Xuan took action to deal with the pests. The more times he used it, the more he understood the Gingjin sword technique. In addition, it was clean and easy to remove insects at a low price, and he also gained a certain reputation among casual cultivators in the North District. Previously, Zhang Xiuyuan had to take the initiative to find customers, but now they all come to the door themselves, and they have to wait in line when there are many people. On this day, Lu Xuan accepted 5 spiritual stones and walked out of a dilapidated courtyard under the care of an endlessly grateful casual cultivator. Friend Daoist Lu, what a coincidence, I met you here. A gentle voice sounded in his ears. Lu Xuan heard the news and went out, only to see a fat white monk standing at the corner, looking at Lu Xuan and the two with a smile. What a coincidence. The North District is so big. How could we happen to meet here? They are obviously waiting for me. Lu Xuan cursed and replied with a smile. It turns out to be fellow Daoist Qin. I haven't seen you for a long time. Fellow Daoist has become even more profound in cultivation. He is indeed a role model for our generation of casual cultivators. I don't want to take it seriously, but fellow Daoist Lu surprised me. I didn't expect that the second-level Qi training casual cultivator who asked me to help get rid of the pests a few months ago has now grown up to the point where he can easily deal with the pests by himself. Qin Ming sighed. He really didn't expect that the little Qi practitioner who he didn't look down on before would one day become his competitor with his superb sword skills. It's just a fluke. It's still far behind senior brother Qin. Lu Xuan's eyes revealed a hint of reminiscence. Everything started from that insect infestation. Since then, in order to prevent the spiritual plants in the spiritual field from being infested by insect pests again, I made up my mind to use all my wealth to buy a sword art. After months of hard training, and maybe a little bit of talent in the way of swordsmanship, I have achieved today's achievements. However, due to my low cultivation level, I can only use sword techniques 2 or 3 times a day, which means I can only earn a small amount of spiritual stones now. Due to the conflict of interest, Lu Xuan had already anticipated the scene of meeting other monks who were dealing with pests, especially Qin Ming, who was at the 4th level of Qi training in front of him and had the most business in the North District. He eloquently told the answer he had prepared and stated that his cultivation was low and he only wanted to earn some spiritual stones for home use and could not steal much of Qin Ming's business. I see. Qin Ming nodded slightly. However, fellow Daoist Lu is still young now. He should focus on cultivation and avoid getting involved with pest problems. Qin Ming looked directly at Lu Xuan with a smile, half advising and half threatening. Thank you, fellow Daoist Qin, for reminding me. I know exactly what to do. Lu Xuan replied lightly and pulled Zhang Xiuyuan away. While walking, he kept feeling a line of sight falling faintly on his back. There are a lot of casual cultivators in the North District. What do you mean by threatening me when I show that I only earn a few spiritual stones? That he thought angrily in his heart that he had already shown weakness and Qin Ming was still chasing after him so fiercely, which made him angry. Suddenly, he paused, and an idea appeared in his mind. The more he thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong. Lu Xuan simply stopped and grabbed Zhang Xiuyuan next to him. Xiao Yuan, Uncle Lu needs your help with something. Go to the home of your friend who is close to you and is infested with insects and ask if he has invited a fat, white, mid-level Qi practitioner who is good at ice spells. If yes, ask him specifically how he dealt with the black budworm larvae after solving the pest infestation. You are young, others will not be wary of you and will tell you detailed information. I will guard outside, so you don't have to worry about safety issues. Zhang Xiuyuan and Lu Xuan looked serious. He had been sensible since he was young and knew the seriousness of the situation. He pursed his lips and nodded vigorously. The two came to a household of casual cultivators that Zhang Xiuyuan mentioned. Zhang Xiuyuan shouted outside the courtyard and entered the courtyard at the invitation of a young man of the same age. Lu Xuan held a few talismans in his hands and waited quietly for him to come out. It's about recommendations. Please be sure to read today's update. Please. Chapter 19, the 4th level of Qi training. Please follow up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Uncle Lu, I've found out clearly. The pest infestation in his house was solved by the fat white monk. The larvae corpses after cleaning were not very impressive. They must have been taken away by the monks. Not long after, Zhang Xiuyuan ran out panting, and the words in his mouth made Lu Xuan feel nervous. Explore again, that he exhaled a breath and said firmly, I looked for 2 more families of casual cultivators and got the same answer. After Qin Ming solved the pest infestation, he took away the larvae corpses. In an instant, thoughts surged wildly in Lu Xuan's mind, and a thread emerged, becoming clearer and clearer. Why is it that for the same 4th level Qi training monk, Qin Ming's cost of taking action is 10% or even 20% lower than that of Fairy Lingyun and sword cultivator Li Su? Why did he take away the corpse of the black budworm larvae after dealing with them? Why am I, a monk at the 2nd level of Qi training, not even qualified to earn a few spiritual stones? Because Qin Ming released the black budworm larvae. He released the adult black budworm into the spiritual field of casual cultivation, secretly laid eggs, and used the vitality of the spiritual plants in the spiritual field to breed and nourish the larvae of the black budworm. When the larvae grew up, he used the guise of cleaning up the pests. Recycle the larvae. This can also explain why the price of hiring Qin Ming is much lower than that of other 4th level Qi training monks with the same level of cultivation. He is best at ice magic. He can separate the black budworm larvae without harming the spiritual plants. You can also just freeze the larvae instead of freezing them to death. take them out and then thaw them. In this way, you can not only earn spiritual stones, but also easily get back the larvae parasitic on the spiritual plants. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Lu Xuan suddenly realized and understood why he was so aggressive. Not only did he earn his spiritual stone, but he also killed the black budworm larvae that parasitized him. What's more important is that he is just a small casual cultivator on the 2nd level of Qi training. So, he secretly put the black budworm larvae that he dealt with before and the adults that he killed in the middle of the night into the spiritual field. Lu Xuan couldn't help but grit his teeth when he thought of this. In other words, not only did I use spiritual plants to help him raise larvae, but I also spent spiritual stones to ask him to take the grown larvae back. If it hadn't been for the appearance of the white light group, the timely purchase of protective formations, and the acquisition of Gingjin sword art, his spiritual field would have been plagued by insects again and again until he, a small cultivator, was eaten alive. Sure enough, the weak will only attack the weaker. However, if you think that you are just a weakling and can manipulate it at will, you are totally wrong. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, his eyes bright. After returning home, Lu Xuan immediately surrounded the courtyard wall and carefully inspected every part of the protective formation. The grass puppet sensed its master's aura, stretched out a gray grass rope, and followed him like a little snake. Lu Xuan confirmed that there was nothing wrong with the formation, came to the grass puppet, took out a broken spirit, and stuffed it into the huge tumor formed by the gray grass on its head. There is a huge disparity in strength, and there is a big conflict of interest. It seems that Qi Ming will not let me go. It just so happens that I don't want to let him go either. It's just that in recent times, although my cultivation, spells, elixirs, talismans, etc. have all improved tremendously, Qi Ming is at the 4th level of Qi training after all. I don't know how successful the fight is now. The top priority is to work hard to improve your own strength and put the cleaning of pests aside for now, so as not to let him catch the flaw. Lu Xuan thought about it and decided to stay at home for the time being. While improving his strength, he also made plans for Qi Ming to break into the house. In the next few days, he stayed at home cultivating spiritual plants and told Zhang Shuyuan not to go out at will. The remaining 14 eclipse fruits have all matured since the last picking, 12 of which are of good quality and 2 of which are of high quality. Lu Xuan picked up 14 slightly flickering white light groups. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and obtain a first-grade magic weapon, the silver splitting blade, remnant. Asterisk 3. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and obtain a first-grade talisman. Asterisk 6. Harvest 1 moon eclipse fruit and get 1 Peiyuan pill. Asterisk 3. That the reward of 12 good quality moon eclipse fruits was not beyond Lu Xuan's expectations. 3 silver-white cracked silver blade fragments filled up the last gap in the blade. A thin sword blade appeared in front of Lu Xuan's eyes. The blade was light silvery white and extremely concealable no matter in day or night. His spiritual power controlled the silver-white sword blade to fly freely in the air. The blade was extremely fast and extremely sharp. Lu Xuan took out a piece of rotten spiritual wood and tried it. When the sword encountered nothing, it cut off the solid spiritual wood at the root like cutting through tofu. With a thought, the silver-white sword blade swimming rapidly around him suddenly split into dozens of silver-white flakes of different shapes, like a group of silver butterflies, flying quickly around Lu Xuan. Immediately, dozens of silver-white flakes gathered together and fit together tightly, forming a short and complete sword blade. Finally, all the fragments of the silver blade have been collected successfully. Lu Xuan breathed a sigh of relief. The intact silver-splitting blade was even sharper and could instantly split into dozens of fragments. Although Lu Xuan was able to control all the fragments of time before, there was still a sense of stagnation, but now, even if there are more fragments, the control is smooth, natural and extremely silky. The greatest value of this first-class magic weapon, the silver-splitting blade, lies in the function of splitting the fragments. If it attacks in the form of a sword, it can only be regarded as a good first-grade magic weapon. But if it suddenly splits into many fragments during the battle and attacks the opponent, its value will increase by 2 levels. Lu Xuan controlled the silver-white sword blade, turned the sword flowers several times, and couldn't put it down. this is also the best method he can use to deal with Qin Ming at this stage. The 6 talismans are all first-grade talismans, and there are no new types of talismans. Lu Xuan carefully put it away. First-grade talismans already had the ability to harm mid-level Qi training monks. If there were enough of them, all fear comes from insufficient firepower. Lu Xuan looked at the many talismans collected during this period and felt a little at ease. In addition, there are 3 first-grade Peiyuan pills, with 2 high-quality eclipse fruits. Guang Tuan prescribed 2 prescriptions for the first-grade elixir Peiyuan Dan. After Lu Xuan absorbed it, he felt that he had extremely rich theories on refining the Yuan Pei Dan. It seems that even though he has not yet practiced it, he has read countless films and the theory is quite solid. For the next 10 days or so, everything was calm and without any disturbance. Qin Ming seemed to have forgotten Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan did not dare to be careless and took precautions every day. Apart from taking care of the spiritual plants in the yard every day, he stayed in the house and stayed behind closed doors. The fireflies in Lingtian have been planted for quite some time. Under his meticulous cultivation, in the past 10 days, the fireflies have gradually entered the mature stage. Lu Xuan harvested 6 fireflies, 4 of which were of good quality and 2 of which were of superior quality. From the moment the spirit seeds were planted, Lu Xuan used their instant status to give them the best cultivation conditions. His efforts would be rewarded, and the probability of high-quality products would also increase a lot. Among them, 3 of the 6 light groups were rewarded with several months of cultivation. Harvest a firefly plant and gain 6 months of cultivation. Asterisk 2. Harvest a spirit firefly grass and obtain the September cultivation level. The thought flashed across his body, and the spiritual power in Lu Xuan's body surged, raging crazily in his meridians, as if breaking through a non-existent barrier. The spiritual power gradually calmed down. Finally broke through to the 4th level of Qi training. Lu Xuan showed a happy smile on his face. After breaking through to the 3rd level of Qi training for a period of time, Lu Xuan has been practicing hard. Together with the 3 newly appeared light groups, which brought nearly 2 years of cultivation, he broke through in one fell swoop and became an intermediate Qi training monk. Chapter 20. Is this the 2nd level of Qi training? You are listening at novelfull.audio. From the other 3 white light groups, 2 Gingjin sword techniques were opened, as well as a first-grade talisman and an earth wall talisman. After use, a thick earth wall about 10 feet high can be created, which has a very good protective effect. Lu Xuan digested the Gingjin sword art in his mind, and carefully understood the subtleties of the sword art. As the spiritual power circulated, a golden stream of light appeared almost instantly, passing through a huge boulder with a whooshing sound. He felt that the sword art he had mastered had reached a small level. When urging it, it consumed less spiritual power, was faster, and its power was much improved. The 6 mature fireflies brought by the 6 white light groups further enhanced Lu Xuan's combat power. He even wished that Qin Ming would come here later. It would be better to wait until all the fireflies mature, and he could even accept the mature red cloud pine or sword grass. However, he also knew that this was wishful thinking. After his opponent figured out his bottom line and action patterns, he would naturally take action quickly. It's night, everything is silent. A figure quietly appeared outside Lu Xuan's courtyard without causing a sound. Damn boy, he's quite cunning. He actually hid in the house and didn't go out. However, you are too naive to think that hiding at home will make you safe. Qin Ming stood quietly outside the courtyard, looking at the black thorns on the wall of the bluestone courtyard, with a trace of ridicule on his face. Relying on his cultivation, which was 2 levels higher than Lu Xuan, he was confident and had a cat-and-mouse mentality and even met Lu Xuan. Unexpectedly, the little casual cultivator on the 2nd floor of Qi training was quite cautious. He had been hiding in the house during this period and no longer went out to help others clean up the pests. He stayed around for several days, but the other party didn't go out, so he simply came over. Basic protective formation. If it is a first-grade formation, it will play a big role. With this kind of protective ability, it can be broken directly. He faced the thin layer of spiritual energy shield outside the yard with one hand, and several sharp ice spikes emerged, spinning and whistling, directly breaking the protective formation. When he came to the window, his spiritual sense sensed that there was no movement in the house, and the destruction of the protective formation did not seem to arouse any vigilance in the young cultivator. My spiritual awareness is so poor that I still sleep like that. It would be better if I let you die in your deep sleep and suffer less pain. Qin Ming muttered in his heart, and then, an ice spear more than half a foot long appeared above his head. The tip of the spear trembled slightly, and the white jade-like body of the spear exuded a biting coldness. The ice gun whistled softly and stabbed the monk on the bed like a sharp arrow. The ice gun went straight through the entire bed, but Qin Ming felt something was wrong. He walked towards the wooden bed and saw a layer of frost armor appearing around him, wanting to check it out. As soon as he entered the house, a golden stream of light pierced Qin Ming's head at an extremely fast speed. The frost armor was easily penetrated by the golden stream of light, and was about to pierce directly into his head. Feeling the fatal threat brought by the golden streamer, in an instant, a jade plaque around Qin Ming's waist shattered silently, and a layer of clear spiritual light was generated on the surface of his body, expanding rapidly, blocking out the unabated golden streamer. How brave! Qin Ming looked at the rapidly melting Gingjin sword Ju, with a hint of fear flashing across his face. He had been cautious enough and added a frost armor protection to himself when he came in. However, he did not expect that the sword technique released by a second-level Qi practitioner could be so lethal. The frost armor technique that has made countless achievements in the past is so vulnerable. If the jade magic weapon hadn't sensed the danger and protected it in time, he might have fallen under this sword technique. After feeling scared, there was a look of regret on his face. This jade magic weapon that blocked a fatal blow for him was extremely difficult to obtain and cost him nearly 200 spirit stones. He always carried it close to his body to prevent any unexpected events. Unexpectedly, such a precious jade magic weapon would be consumed by this little casual cultivator on the second level of Qi training. Very good, your attainments in sword art far exceed my imagination, but that's about it. I will make you regret wasting a top-level protective magical weapon on me. That he looked at Lu Xuan's figure emerging from the darkness in the corner and said with a sinister expression. I'm just an ordinary spiritual planter. You, a noble monk at the middle level of Qi training, why do you need to kill them all like this? Lu Xuan said in a calm tone. The mistake is that you killed so many of my larvae and earned the spiritual stones that should have been mine. The biggest mistake is that you are just a casual practitioner on the second level of Qi training. Do you understand? Lu Xuan didn't say much and hooked his hand towards Qin Ming. Snort. Being so provoked by a spiritual planter on the second level of Qi training, Qin Ming felt an evil fire in his heart, and his spiritual power started to circulate. Dozens of ice picks exuding bone-chilling coldness quickly appeared in front of him, covering all the possible hiding places for Lu Xuan. Lu Xuan had no expression on his face, flicked his hands, and used a dozen first-grade talismans in unison. In an instant, densely packed sword blades struck Qin Ming like a rain of arrows, mixed with red fireballs, green-gray with thorns, etc. They are all white spirit stones. A thought quickly flashed through Lu Xuan's mind. This blow almost emptied out all the talismans he had collected during this period. It was a spiritual stone battle. At the same time, a pale silver-white sword blade followed behind the numerous sword energies, without being conspicuous at all. Seeing so many sword energies attacking him, Qin Ming cursed in his heart, pressed with one hand, and a thick ice wall suddenly rose in front of him. He does have profound knowledge in ice magic. The frost armor can be so thin that it can freeze black budworm larvae as thin as hair, and it can also quickly form such a protective ice wall. Hundreds of thousands of sword Qi roared in, and with the clanging sound, countless tiny cracks appeared on the ice wall. Under the impact of the sword Qi from behind, the cracks spread rapidly, and ice cubes of all sizes fell. Bang! The red fireball hit the crack, ice and fire merged, and a violent explosion occurred instantly. A huge hole appeared in the ice wall. A silver-white sword light passed through quietly and stabbed Qin Ming's head. Well done! A flying sword flew out from Qin Ming's waist and faced the silver-white sword blade. The moment the two were about to come into contact, the silver-white sword blade suddenly split into dozens of thin fragments. The fragments carried sharp sword intent and attacked various parts of Qin Ming's body with his eyes splitting. One of the largest thin slices went around the back of Qin Ming's head and gently scratched it. A thin line appeared on the back of his neck, and then bright red blood sprayed out. the moment his head fell off, Qi Ming's remaining consciousness saw one or several thin fragments stuck in various parts of his limbs, heart, vagina, etc. Is this the second level of Qi training? Endless regret surged in his heart, and then his consciousness fell into endless darkness.